Hi everyone and welcome. I'm Gabrielle Martin and it's a pleasure to have you with us for another episode of Open Your Eyes to the Universe. If you're joining our program for the first time, let me tell you just a little bit about it. It's a series of contemporary talks, conversations, open-eyed meditations and interviews with people who inspire and uplift others by sharing their wisdom, their insights and their experiences to co-create a better world. And as we begin, the Youniverse team would like to acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the traditional custodians of the land upon which we meet. We pay our respects to the elders of the past, the present and the future, and acknowledge their spiritual connection to country. We also would like to acknowledge and respect the wise elder within us all and the collective wisdom of all those here this evening. Last month on Youniverse, you might recall that we were in the company of Alex Pateau, a retired counsellor and trainer, and Joseph Yachevsky, a multi-talented tradie. And together they were exploring that art, that subtle art of deep listening as a sacred art and a spiritual practice. And they were sharing on how they use this practice in their everyday lives and its capacity to transform relationships, to nurture the inner voice and inspire spiritual growth. This month, tonight, we're joined by Canadian broadcaster, journalist and filmmaker, Eric Reste. He's with us for a conversation on diversity and inclusion. You know, feeling marginalised, excluded and unengaged are increasingly common experiences of the 21st century, and I'm sure it's been going on long before then as well. So many of us long to fit in somewhere and to be accepted and appreciated for who we are. If there's three big words of the 21st century, I think they're likely to be diversity, inclusion, and belonging. We explored belonging during our June episode of Youniverse with Dr. Annette Mortensen from Refugees as Survivors New Zealand and Samantha Fraser, meditation teacher involved with Black Lives Matter in Oxford. And although their focus was primarily belonging, they highlighted its interrelationship with diversity and inclusion. Best-selling communications authors Liz Fosslin and Molly West Duffy summarise the interconnection between diversity, inclusion and belonging clearly in their statement. Diversity is having a seat at the table, inclusion is having a voice, and belonging is having that voice heard. Equally compelling, social researcher Brené Brown comments that we know that only when diverse perspectives are included and respected and valued that we can start to get a full picture of our world. So, how do you see difference? What is your attitude to diversity? And why is valuing diversity and being inclusive so challenging sometimes in practice? What does diversity and inclusion look and feel like through a spiritual lens? Would a spiritual gaze assist us practically in really appreciating and deeply respecting diversity and improving our practice of inclusion collectively and systemically? Our guest, Eric Reste, has an applied appreciation of diversity and inclusion. He's been with the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, CBC Radio Canada, for more than 35 years. As a journalist and producer, he worked for the main television news and current affairs programs within the French services. And along with his career, Eric has always maintained a special interest in spirituality. For the past 35 years, he's been a daily practitioner of meditation as taught by the Brahma Kumaris, a meditation teacher, and he's also the national coordinator of the Brahma Kumaris in Canada. He brings his understanding of diversity and inclusion and his understanding of and spiritual knowledge of a meditation technique into his spiritual life. And viewers, as always, we welcome your participation and questions, and thanks to those who've sent them in already. If you'd like to ask any more questions, then just pop them in the chat and we'll catch up with them in the Q&A. Eric, it's just fantastic to have you with us tonight. I sense that you're going to be sharing some of your deep insights and those key learnings and the personal experiences about diversity and inclusion. And I'd just like to let our viewers know that whilst it's 6 p.m, a very comfortable 6 p.m. for us here in Australia, it's actually 4 a.m. in the morning for Eric. That's absolutely phenomenal, 4 a.m. And we did offer to pre-record this, and Eric said no, he'd be quite happy to do it live. And I guess being a broadcaster and a journalist, Eric knows the value of a live interview. So Eric, it's just lovely to have you with us. And if you fall off to sleep or go off topic, we're all going to understand that immensely. It's just a very, very warm welcome to you, and particularly to this part of the world down under.
Well, Gabrielle, thank you so much. I mean, this is very lovely to be alive and awake and conscious. I usually wake up early in the morning anyway, so it's not a problem of waking up. It's a problem of speaking at that time. It's usually a time we use to, reflect and be quiet. So, but very, very happy to, have this invitation. And it's a topic, a theme that really is dear to my heart. And yes, I've been, working in public media for a long, long time. But for more than 12 or 13 years, I've been on different committees at CBC on diversity and inclusion. So we have two big committees. One is a national one with a lot of people on the table, around the table. And another one is more like for the province of Quebec, or the French services in particular. And both are really trying to bring this issue of diversity and inclusion in the corporation. And it is fascinating for me to see the parallel between the spiritual principles around diversity and inclusion and a corporate approach to diversity and inclusion. And I don't know if sometimes they really can join so easily, because on a corporate level, I've been witnessing for a long time how I think people have goodwill and they want to bring that diversity in the company, in CBC, but also in the face of the public. So how we present diversity in the content of our productions. And I know very often on these committees, we deal with numbers and figures and quotas and dealing with conflicts and how this diversity and inclusion is not, developed enough or respected or smooth enough. And it's a big puzzle. It's something very, very complicated for a corporation to just match the reality of a corporation with the reality of the world. And I find that sometimes diversity includes more exclusion and sometimes adversity. And I find that sometimes when, we're not prepared to deal with differences, then the normal reaction could be to be closed, to be hermetic, to be a little bit distant, to be a bit cold. And they could create conflicts very easily, misunderstanding. Then it goes into higher form of, problems, not just exclusion, but harassment or discrimination, lack of valuing the work of others. Discrimination is such a powerful ingredient now in corporation because of, what they call the toxic environment that is creating, very, very difficult relationships among the peers. So yeah, the link between the spiritual and the human, I would say, or the social dimension of diversity for me has been fascinating for many, many years. And I've been confronted with that diversity from a young age. I've always been, I don't know, more tan maybe, or my physiognomy doesn't look so much like from Brittany in France. I've been usually asked all my life, and where are you from? Are you Italian, Spanish, wherever? I have a French accent. So I've been a minority my whole life, or part of the minority everywhere I go. If I'm in France, I'm not perceived as French. If I'm in Canada, I'm perceived as French. Wherever I go in the world, it's always, I never feel like that this is a place I'm from. So the spiritual dimension of this diversity, I think is going to touch a chord in each one of us, which is going to bring this self-awareness on the forefront. Because when we want to confront, let's say, or adjust to a difference, I may have to really first tune in with my own identity. And I think that sometimes diversity is challenging for all of us because we don't even know ourselves at the first place correctly. And I think we're in a world of post-it, I think everybody has that, those little post-it, you post it everywhere. And I think that if we were to have a spiritual vision of the world, you'll see everybody walking in the street, not just with their dress and their way of wearing clothes, but I think we all have so many post-its on ourselves, and we put ourselves post-it, or we put post-it on ourselves, but we also put post-it on everyone else. And just imagine a conversation when two people start talking, and one starts to say, "Oh, he's from Africa," or "He's Muslim," or "He's a producer," or "His father." How many post-it do we put on someone when we are in conversation with them? How many post-it I'm being put on by other people all the time? And some post-it, I think, have become permanent. They just became glued or stamped on us, and they create our own identity, and we start to believe them. So the spiritual process, I think, that we're very, very involved in meditation or in our spiritual study, is to remove all these post-its, for once, and then to ask the self, okay, what am I really? Who am I really? And to me, this has been a big shift in my journey in life, because redefining myself has helped me a lot to maybe not redefine others, but to have a different lens, like you said, or a different way to understand the other person, and certainly to refrain myself from putting all those post-its on the person as soon as I meet them. So yeah, it's a beautiful, I think, challenge for all of us to question our attitude towards diversity and inclusion. I mean, inclusion is another, we'll talk about it a bit later, but just diversity. What is my attitude towards diversity? And I would really challenge everyone to be looking at how I see myself in the diversity. And, it's always the joke between French-speaking people. Quebecers in Canada, we feel that French people from France have a strong accent. But French don't think they have an accent. And they think that people from Quebec have a very, very strong accent. So I'm sure it's the same in English. In Australia, you have a very sweet, you don't have accent, right? It's Canadian who must have an accent. So how do you perceive the other is also based on how you perceive yourself. So that would be my little, sharing for introducing this big topic. And I don't know if you want us, Gabrielle, to switch into maybe a little reflection before we move forward, or what would be...
I think that'd be lovely, Eric. You've raised some really deep points here, and I loved your explanation of post-its. It's so visual. And you're so right. How many post-its are we walking around with, these labels that we've acquired and that we've given ourselves, and others have given them to us, and some of them become permanent. It'd be lovely to have a reflection on some of the things that these big things that you've already taken us into. It'd be beautiful.
So let's go then into a little meditative mood, and we'll do removing of post-its meditation. So let's enjoy being together and connecting with one another. Although this is an online event, I don't see anyone listening. You see me. But let's imagine that we can all, whoever is connected at the moment and will be connected later, let's imagine that we all really start to see each other, not physically, but let's see each other as beings, spiritual beings. We can even say beings of light, spiritual light, souls. And when I go into silence, it's as if I'm entering a different room. It's a room where I can easily drop all my temporary identities. I enter this room of silence, and I just feel suddenly that, yes, I have a body, but I'm not this body. I have a name, but I'm not the name. I have a role in my life, but I'm not my role. And as I go deeper into that room of silence, I just feel more and more that I'm getting closer to my natural essence, my true self, the one invisible, sometimes even invisible to myself. I know there's life, that I am life, and that I bring life in the body. So I think of myself as a being of light, a conscious being, just like a spirit, a soul. And I'm the one creating those thoughts. It is I, the soul, who feels and think and bring life into the physical world through my body. But I'm not all these identities that I've become so attached to. I'm using my body. I'm enjoying my relationships. I'm enjoying my life. But I want to really feel my true nature, my spiritual nature. And as I see myself as a conscious being of light, without name, without color, without a religion, just an eternal being, a soul, then I can see everyone as a soul. Yes, I can see their form, their name, their bodies. But I know that deep within, there's more. And as I connect with everyone as a soul, it changes everything. I can be a natural current of love, of respect, of belonging, as if we are all a huge constellation of souls and we belong to one another. We are together on a journey. And connecting through the heart, through the soul, brings so much harmony, so much energy. Just like all the stars in the sky, dancing together, belonging to the same universe. So I enjoy this moment of silence. I appreciate how silence reveals my true identity, my true self. And I know that silence empowers me, gives me the energy to return to the awareness of the body, the awareness of my name, my role. But I want to come from within and express that rich and beautiful eternal light through my eyes, through my words, through each and every action. So I am this beautiful being, eternal being of light, and I bring that light into the world. So it's beautiful when we take a few minutes like that, because now I feel I can almost see you all. You see, the first few minutes was just me and my screen, and now I feel I have company. And there's magic in the power of silence, because it's all in the mind, isn't it? If I open my mind to feeling the presence of others, it's just waves, radio waves, or any kind of waves. They're not visible, but when they touch, they become visible. So I feel spirituality can connect us together, and it can be felt. At least I can feel something. I'm not alone. So it's a beautiful way, I find, in silence, to just explore another dimension and another way to connect with everyone. So I don't know, Gabrielle, I feel after meditation, we should watch TV. What do you think? I'm from a television background, so I watch a lot of videos, and I produce a lot of videos. I mean, that's my job. And I wanted to show you, it's a very, very powerful story. It's very short. And I want to invite you to, it's a story without words. So it's not in French. You can all understand. It's a universal language. It's just music, and there will be English writing. I invite you to watch this video. It's in the world of dance. You'll see it's a beautiful, but it's all about perception, inclusion, the challenge that everyone has to face when you're different. And to me, what I like in that little short film is that every image says so much. And we learn the language of the eyes, not just a language of the ears, but there's a language of the eyes, what the body says, what the hands say, what a taxi, a yellow taxi tells you. It tells you where you are. So let's enjoy. It's a short little film that I can use as a starter for a bigger conversation after that. So we can watch this beautiful short film on the power of dreaming your world.
Over to you, Pete.
You!
Barriga, Ingrid. Estica o pé direito. Vamos. Gramplier. Você pode, Ingrid. Não para. Vambora. Estica mais o pé.
Isn't that beautiful?
Wow, wasn't it? That was amazing, wasn't it? Powerful
Yeah.
story, isn't it?
I like that story very much because, you know, I find that in to move from diversity to inclusion, there's to be a process. It cannot just be diversity. Okay, now let's be inclusive. There's a process that has to go through. And as I mentioned in the beginning, there's a big difference between how we do it in corporations. And I really value what we do. And I've been on these committees for more than 10 years. And I know it's a very sincere and genuine effort from a corporation to respect diversity, to increase actually diversity. We are really, really not at the moment reflecting completely the profile of society. So we need to increase diversity, but also to do it in such a way that there is inclusion. And I find that this is where in between there's a process and something that you can't force. You can't tell the person okay, you need to love your neighbor. I think it was said in a religion, but how? How do you do that? If you don't like someone, how do you force yourself to appreciate someone that you don't like? So it's the same. It's okay, you have to be respectful. You have to regard the other, even though there's differences. But that's where I think social norms, human development is limited, because we can't force love. And that's where I find spirituality fills the gap and is absolutely essential. I've been in a work environment which is not very, very kind. Journalism, television business, it's a bit rough. Newsroom is not like meditation room. It's very, very different. You don't sit the same way in a newsroom than you do in the meditation room. And sometimes we're told, yes, there should be respect, and we get even classes or training or workshops on respect. It doesn't work very, very well. It still has glitches, and people find it, how do you respect others if you're being imposed to be respectful to others? It's very difficult. And I felt very, very lucky and very fortunate to have found this organization, for a spiritual teaching, because then we learn in spirituality how to do it. So my personal approach to diversity and inclusion has been to understand how to move from one to the other. And I discovered for myself, and I know sometimes I share it and I think it can inspire other people, but for me, there are 5 very powerful rules in relationships with others. And I've really developed them really over the years, consciously. And still today, I'm using these same 5 kind of rules for myself to force myself to really interact differently with people. And I find that the first rule that I practice is knowing the other person before anything else. And sometimes, yes, there will be difference that will shock me, or they have opinions that I don't share. Sometimes it's not just diversity in color and religion and social status, but it's diversity in even thinking, opinions. So I find that the first rule is taking the time to get to know someone properly. How many people in terms of knowing how many brothers and sisters they have? Are their parents alive? Where do they come from? Even colleagues at work, sometimes you can work for 10 years with someone and know very little about the person for only one reason. We didn't take time. We didn't ask the right questions. Or we just asked superficially the first day, oh, where are you from, and this and that. But really, finding at some point that I need to know the other a little bit more. If it's a public person, I can read about them. I can research a little bit, try to understand, imagine their journey, what they have gone through, and try to really silence the mind to just hear the other person. So that's my personal practice, to try to know the other more. And the more I know the other person, the easier the other 4 steps will be. So the second step for me, after knowing the person a little bit more, is just to really extract or formulate in my mind what are their good qualities, what I like in them, what I find in them, which is, a speciality, a quality, a courage. I may not agree necessarily or be the same for sure, but what do I see in the other that I find is actually precious, that is important? What are the qualities? We say that sometimes a person may have, 35 defects and 1 quality. And yeah, my practice, if I want to create inclusion, I need to see that 1 quality and focus on it and know that quality well. So that's my second approach, to really articulate this one. Oh yeah, that one is courage. Yeah, a lot of courage. This one, honesty. This one, for each one, I'm trying to get used. Maybe it is another post-it, I don't know, but it's a spiritual post-it. And it's one that goes on the soul, not on the external appearance of the person. So yes, I go into that, looking at the speciality, the quality, the virtue of someone. And then the third approach for me is always let's put myself in the mode, can I do something to help that person? Can I put myself into a mode, not what I get from that person or what I expect from that person, but can I also be in a mood or in a mode of, what can I do? What can I do to help? How can I help that person? So the benevolence, I think, becomes an ingredient that is very important. It doesn't matter what the person is, thinks, or whatever. Can I do something? Just how can I help? How can I do something? Is that person requiring an ear to be heard? Does it require silence? Does it require a non-judgmental person? Does it require caring, attention? What can I do? And then I move into a fourth dimension, which I find very, very important, is how can I bring in spirituality in the relationship? Not just social or human, but spiritual. How can I really bring something spiritual in a relationship? So that's where I get into love, basically. And I know it's strange sometimes to try to love strangers, but love is just an ingredient, that makes the relationship so much better. And love doesn't have to be hugging and kissing and telling the other how much you love them. Love is an energy. It's one of the most beautiful energy that the human spirit can produce. To me, it's like putting sometimes extra spices in cooking. It makes it so much more flavorful. So love is something spiritual, and it doesn't have to be, I love you because, you give me something or you make me feel something. But it can just be, I love you because that's my nature, to love people. Because loving people creates harmony in relationships. Or it could be just seeing other person with a spiritual lens, bringing spirituality in the connection. And the fifth one for me is this notion of belonging. To really keep telling myself, when I see other people and I do the process of, moving from one element to the other, at some point I tell myself, I belong to them. We belong together. We're in the same boat. We're in the same planet. We're in the same world. And we're on a journey together. It's the same story. We're in the same film. And I find that if I go through these 5 elements, it really changes my attitude, my energy, just probably what they call the vibration, which the other person is going to pick up. They're going to feel my attitude is different. And what I like about this little short film is, the journey everyone has to go through when they're different. It's really, really remarkable that so many people go through things that we have no clue about, unless we make a little film for people that we meet. And if you were to see that dancer, she's in a world where all the dancers are white, and she's probably the only one black. There are very, very few black dancers, and now there are, of course, many, but 2008 or a long time ago was different. And the courage people need to live in their difference. In Canada, we're a country like Australia, we have so many people from all different parts of the world. And it's not just that you welcome them, to a country, and that's it. The part of inclusion, comes with establishing relationships. And I like very much what you wrote, Gabrielle, so you quoted somewhere that it's not just about allowing people to fit in. It's not just, okay, I include you, which means I fit you in a little mold, and then you have to be there. No, it's also, I allow you to be who you are in an environment which is very different. And I have to adjust, the other person has to adjust. So I find that, that diversity and inclusion, so it doesn't become adversity and exclusion, requires a spiritual ground. It requires a spiritual approach. And maybe this is what we're lacking in our social norms of dealing with diversity. We lack a lot of spirituality. Thankfully, what I see is a lot of charitable organizations that bring that to the reality. People, volunteers, most of them, they're always volunteer. big-hearted people, and they are the ones who make the difference. We showed at the meditation center in Montreal just a few weeks ago, and we're going to meet the producer of the film. It's called Us All, I think in English. And it's a film that he did traveling around the world to show how there can be difference in religions, but yet learning. And his point was not just to be together or live together, but to do together, to act together. So he found so many places in the world where people made a big difference in knowing how to include individuals from different religions and not just make them fit with one another, but actually the conclusion is you enrich the other one through the diversity. It's not just like you make compromises and adjust and, you know, make rules and Monday it's you, Tuesday it's me, or something like that. But you actually get more out of it. You enrich each one by creating inclusion in diversity. So that's a little bit what I can share for now. And I know, Gabrielle, you may want to chit-chat and ask questions, or maybe some listening have questions or comments that they would like to express. And I have another film, so I'll show you later on, which is very, very sweet. And I know you have one also. So this is like a screening festival. Little film festival on diversity and inclusion, which is beautiful.
It's good, isn't it? And storytelling is such a beautiful way to really deeply understand diversity and inclusion. And look, yes, there are some things flowing in, and there's a lot of appreciation for the meditation that you did a few moments ago, Eric. So thank you for that. I was liking the way that you were giving us tools there, and very personable tools as well, like, you know, how silence really does empower. And gets us into that zone because it opens up our capacity to love spiritually. I think that's such a turning point, isn't it? And the bridge, you were talking about it as being the bridge between diversity and appreciating, honoring diversity, but actually moving into inclusivity. But I just capture those points you made. I really love them, knowing the other person, really taking time and, you know, to really understand each other's journey is such a rich, I mean, it's so personally rewarding, isn't it? That feeling of getting to know someone and being able to walk in their shoes, or feel like you could walk in their shoes. They've shared so much, and you've shared so much about yourself as well. And then you moved into that aspect of like seeing the good. And I was thinking that does take a lot of spiritual power in a way to be able to really consistently see the good. But what a lovely process it is. It's such a divine feeling, being able to see the good in myself, but also with everyone that I'm interacting with. And so I'm going to take that little treat as well. I think it's a lovely way to approach everyone, actually, from that point of view, from that. And then moving into that thing around, well, what can I do here that might help? Or just provide some space. Maybe it's a non-judgmental ear, and that's pretty rare these days. So even that, or some silence, some care, some kindness. And your fourth principle too about, I guess at that point, just turning that relationship into a more spiritual focus, so that it's not just a social relationship, but you really, I guess you talked before about the soul, and you're starting to really see this person in that way, not as all their post-its, but just seeing them in that spiritual context, and enables love to emerge and start to feel the harmony of that love. And I was also appreciating, you know, that fifth principle that you spoke of about belonging. You know, telling yourself and telling myself that when I see other people, you know, I tell myself I belong to them. And we have this expression in New Zealand, where I'm from, and it's we're all in the same waka, we're all in the same canoe. But essentially it's, you know, we're all in the same story, we're in the same world, and we'll go through things, and the courage to live one's difference, and so on. So yeah, some really deeply loving things, and amazing. You know, they're so simple, and they take time and attention to bring them into your life, and yet it enriches. It's so enriching. It really opens things up. And so thank you for those 5 principles. Yeah. Gorgeous. Look, there is
Yeah, I
the
find
question.
that, the main obstacle in dealing with diversity, in my opinion, is about being judgmental.
Yes.
And the moment we see a difference and we start judging, I think we're closing the door in a very beautiful flow of energy between the people. And I think being judgmental is so natural for so many. I was like that so much, and I used to think I was just French, but I was very, very, focused on the hairstyle and the dress and the coat. And if somebody were not wearing clothes that I liked, I felt, that probably a different social class, or, I was very very judgmental. Business people to me would be corrupt, always. So as soon as I saw someone from business, I had my judgment. All my little post-it, were not only post-it of identities, but then they became post-it of judgments. And they're the worst post-it, they're very, very toxic post-it. And so I think that's really what our challenge in creating harmony in diversity is finding the tool to disarm a judgmental mind, a judgmental, attitude. That's very important.
It's deep work, really, isn't it? Because behind those judgments is actually beliefs, We come in with these beliefs that, yes, like you just talked about, business people are corrupt. And I think a lot of us would relate to that. I certainly do. And that's a belief in a way. And so I've assimilated that somewhere along the line. But when I start to unpack my beliefs, it's a good way into working out exactly why I'm being judgmental and critical. Look, there's a question that's come in that I think is worth sharing here. There's a lot of communities that have really suffered by being marginalized, put down, criminalized, and pathologized. Black people, queer people, women. I think it's a balance of honoring the reality of the body identity, but knowing that it's not completely who I am. What would it take to remove the practice that so many people have of shaming and excluding people who are different from themselves?
There's another formula that I found is very, very powerful. And it's a bit along the line of how to avoid the judgmental attitude, but also in general, there are two sides, I think, to the question is how I perceive other groups of individuals and how to identify myself with a group of individuals. And I think sometimes without knowing it, when we are part of a minority, like I said, I was part of a minority in Quebec and Canada, French-speaking are a minority group. And, we always say for Quebecers here in Canada, we're surrounded by an ocean of English-speaking people. It's true. And the French language is threatened a lot. And I find that by wanting to develop my identity as a French-speaking person, there's also a risk of me getting so attached to this identity that I suffer twice more from the exclusion that may be happening than if I were to take a little bit of a detachment by saying to myself, I'm not just that either. So I think that sometimes in the conflict of diversity, there is the way others perceive a group of individuals, but also what happens in the group of people who develop such a strong sense of identity that it can become sometimes also an obstacle in feeling included, in feeling appreciated. And to me, there's three words that I've learned a long, long time ago. My friend, yogi friend, who told me that, and I've always remembered that. And he said there are three toxic words in dealing with others, and it's compare, compete, complain. And he was saying that if you start comparing, you'll start competing, but then you'll start complaining. And I've always found that they were really true. I mean, I keep saying it around me that it's always comparison. You got this, I got that. You got this, you do that. I do this, you do that. So by comparing, we're losing the sense of unicity, that we're not comparable, not always. I'm talking, of course, there are some social norms, okay, we can compare, but humanly speaking, or spiritually speaking, where each individual is unique. So we should not compare, because then the competition is very unhealthy sometimes, and then they complain. Someone told me the other day, I'm very loyal, I'm very grateful, but I hate it when people are not like that. And I say, oh, wow, okay, so you are virtuous, but you get really mad when somebody is not virtuous like you. Well, I would say your virtue is toxic. It has a tumor in it. It has cancer in it. I'm loving, but I can't stand it if somebody is not loving. Well, you're going to be, upset very, very often. So compare, compete, complain. And to me, it has always been about the opposite of the three. And then I thought, okay, what will be the three positive attitudes instead of comparing, competing, complaining? And to me, it always been about connect. First connect, so what I shared, first connect, then collect, then feel how that connection enriches my own self. How am I taking benefit through honest, proper connection? And then they can be correct, which means, yes, I have to adjust. I have to change sometimes what I say. I have to apologize. And then I may have to really, yes, do something to create that inclusion. Or I may have to say to the other person, your behavior is actually a problem, and we should talk about it. Or I perceive your behavior maybe as a potential problem, find the right words, of course. So connect, collect, correct becomes much more, constructive than the other ones. And I think I'm very, very close to, of course, through all these activities in diversity and inclusion, we have an LGBT group in Radio Canada, very, very active as well. We have women's groups. We have also groups from different communities, very, very active. And I've been to many of these gatherings, and I find that it's very difficult, to deal with the fact it's not moving fast enough. We would like to say today that there's no more issue being gay in the world, and it's totally wrong. Even in Canada, Canada is a very, very open-minded country, and we're probably one of the most advanced in terms of, all these rights given to people in different marginal groups. But you go most in the countries in the world, it's still a big issue, and we still have young people doing their coming out at 20 years old through so much pain. I said, this shouldn't be like that. We should be so open about who we are and feeling so okay with who we are. So I see how in many of these groups, we're not satisfied. It's not yet, we cannot say, nice, okay, we settle the thing, diversity is done, inclusion, everybody's happy. It's not true at all. Even in a country like Canada, there's still a lot of discrimination against women, against gay, against Black people, against everyone. And so there's definitely a gap which no one has found yet how to solve it on a society. On an individual level, on a microscopic macro level, I think we do amazing things in the world. But generally, look at the wars in the world. They're all about, I'm this, you're that. We create those conflicts based on those post-its. For me, I think, I don't know about all of you, but what is happening in the world challenges our views on what I really believe about other people. You talked about belief, but I think it's true. If I see a conflict, I'm a great fan of tennis. And I was asked during all the past few months, so what do you think about excluding tennis players from the Grand Slam, in Wimbledon or in different places? So because they're from Russia, okay, they cannot play anymore in tournaments. It's a very simple question, but you bring suddenly an issue where there was no issue. And to play against Russians in a tournament, that was okay. And now suddenly that attachment to identity creates exclusion where it shouldn't be. So we're not only not dealing with the problems, but we're creating more problems based on, again, different attachments to identity. So I think each one, even if I'm someone, who identifies in a group or not, may have to do a little work sometimes of saying, yes, I identify with this particular group, but I should also take a break, take a break. I'm not gay, I'm not Black, I'm not Jewish, I'm not Christian. It's just one aspect on one facet of my very, very big identity. And let me get out myself of little boxes that are maybe squeezing me in a feeling of being unaccepted, excluded, not recognized. And if I take a bigger identity than those limited ones, I'll generate a different connection with other people. And I believe in that. And I'm not saying that it's not good, to have solidarity and inclusion and, cohesiveness in a group. Of course, there has to be militant attitude, claiming rights, definitely. But spiritually speaking, I'm talking really spiritually speaking, for me, I'm doing the same thing. I go beyond my French identity or my tennis identity or my producer. I have to tell myself sometimes, Eric, you're not a producer. It's just a role. Don't get too crazy about it. Because if I'm attached to an identity, we call it ego. And that attachment to an identity becomes sometimes strong and hard. And that's what creates my judgment of the other. My ego will start to be really unable to accept the differences because I'm attached to my identity. And if you damage my identity, I hate you and I'm going to go after you and I'm going to yell at you, do something to you because I'm attached to my identity.
Unraveling this is quite a huge process, isn't it, Eric? And I want to show a little video here around by the time we get to adults, we're so clear on who we think we are. We've developed identities, but we've also developed a whole lot of judgments where we privilege or where we or disenfranchise on the basis of these social norms that we've accumulated. But when I look at childhood, there's been some amazing things done in this space around how we perceive difference differently. So have a look at this video, and as you do, invite the viewers to just consider, what you think is different, and what's differences to you, and you'll be quite surprised around what these kids are saying about difference when they're being asked. So Pete, it's the one on young children.
Different from each other.
I used to not like letters, but now I like letters. I do not like letters at all. Lucy loved tomato sauce, and I do like it, but I don't love it as much as Lucy. Don't have the same. Our Arthur lives down the hill and I live up the hill. No, I have smaller toes than Artie. I like goulash and chips and I like sushi. And they're different. She never stops talking. We got different hair. He lives in a house that doesn't have squirrels in the roof. We have squirrels in the roof, so we can't watch television that much because it's biting all the wires. Both. I'm good at gymnastics and Kaylee May is good at swimming. I'm not good at dancing. I am. You're a defender and I'm a defender. No, I'm not anymore. I used to be, no, I'm not. No, we're not. What? Good at counting and I'm good at hiding. And Matthew's good at better and Matthew's good at staying in den.
When it comes to difference, children see things differently.
Do you have anything else to say? No.
CBeebies. Everyone's welcome.
Yeah, so look at that. What we think of difference when we were children. And I don't know about you, but when I first watched that video and they asked that question, I anticipated what those children were going to say. And of course, I was totally shocked and beautifully surprised that the difference between what looked like two very different bodies, they weren't seeing it at all. They were seeing that one likes lettuce and the other doesn't, or one likes tomato sauce and the other doesn't, or one's toes are bigger, or one's got, squirrels in their ceiling, and that's why they can't watch TV that much. But isn't it fascinating? It's not so judgmental, and it's about seeing what they like about each other as well. Like they were saying, so and so's good at, Matthew's good at, and I'm good at, rather than this comparison in the way that you were outlining it, Eric, as we get older, which is what we all do. So
in French, there's an expression in French. We say truth comes out through the mouth of the children. Yeah. And it's a beautiful expression. And it says usually the truth that comes through the mouth of the children because they don't have filters, right?
Yeah.
We always say as a child, you don't know hate until you learn from others. But it's a very unnatural attitude. And I think this is a beautiful way to bring us back to our little child eyes, inside of us. And I think we should be more like children, more often. I find that we wish, for me, I know it was when I was young, I was totally unable to deal with the negativity in the world. I would see the wars, I would see conflicts. I was a parliamentary news reporter for many years. So I was reporting from the House of Commons, or the House of Government, if you want. And I thought I was in a circus every day. You would be sitting there and you would see the party, the political party in power, the opposition parties, adults. And then there will be kids coming in the gallery that were invited to see, so that they can be shown this is how politics work. I was ashamed for humanity that we would show kids how we do politics. So you yell at each other, you insult each other, you don't listen to each other. It is embarrassing. It is so bad that adults behave like totally stupid people. Like this thing. This is politics. You don't respect each other. This is so zero, no values, on a spiritual level when I was watching it. But that was the news, and then the journalists, I would find them very oblivious to that. They would just say, oh yeah, what he said is right, and the question was good, and then we should challenge. So this is a scoop, we have the news. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, hopeless perspective on the future of a society. If the leaders are behaving not even like kids, we would say you behave like children, but they don't. Children behave much better than the politicians. So I was really hopeless when I was watching this politics and these things happening. And if it was not for returning to a spiritual vision, I don't know where I would nurture my hope for the future. I don't see hope when I'm watching the war at the moment in the world. I don't see hope when I look at big conflicts in different parts of the world. And I see that people in power are obsessed about their own ideas and their own thinking to the cost of the lives of so many other people. It's difficult to have hope. And if I don't return to my spiritual little silent room, my heart is going to suffer. I feel pain, when I watch the news that I produce. So that's why I've always tried to produce different news. I've been specialized in producing documentaries on, human values, spiritual values, trying to take a positive side. But I think we need to go to that silent of the soul to find a truth which is not in the news. I can tell you that. It's not obvious, but it's in a deep silence that we discover another energy that unifies, that harmonizes, that includes, that brings us together. It's not going to be socially only, but it has to, I believe, it has to come from a deep spiritual perspective. And that's where I think meditation is essential to process what's going on in my day, in my life. Meditation is not just I sit, I close my eyes and I say Om and the world becomes a beautiful paradise. It doesn't work that way. To me, meditation is sometimes surgery room, operation room. It's a war room, and I have to deal with what's going on inside of me, and I have to really see it. If I'm judgmental, and I've been, many times in conflict with people, and I was, surprised by my own attitude, and I would need to go into my silence and say, Eric, what happened to you? Why did you dislike that person? Why did you react so badly to one thing that the person said? Oh, okay, my ego is there again. So if I'm not paying attention to my ego, that ego is going to do a lot of damage. And if no one is paying attention to their egos, it's like we're all walking with guns, and every time somebody annoys me, I just shoot at them, and it's okay, dealt. I mean, no, I can't do that. But we allow our ego to do that all the time, to shoot at people. So I think it's very, very important to go into that silence, to be, let's process our issues. So we are not part of the problem, but we are really bringing a solution on the table. And this diversity and inclusion at all the levels is something we are all, I think, confronted every day. There's always be someone different, always. And I have to deal with that. And I have to make sure I create harmony, not, exclusion. Anyway, sorry, I got totally enthusiastic about it now.
No, I love the flow. I love the flow. And actually it leads into a question here that I'd love to pitch now that's come through. And it's, how has your connection with the divine helped you appreciate your own diversity and the diversity of others? It's sort of moving into that spiritual realm a bit more deeply.
Well, yes, in meditation, we like to not be alone in our meditation silent room. And yes, there are different approaches. Raja Yoga, that's the meditation I practice, brings this dimension of the divine. For me, I rejected God when I was very, very young. My mother passed away, I was 14. And at that time, I was a very strong, good Catholic. And I felt betrayed by God, that God took my mother to be sitting with him. I thought, well, don't do that to kids. So I was very angry at God for many, many years. I was very angry, and I didn't want to hear anyone talking to me about God. And then, through spirituality, I changed maybe my definition of the divine. I learned that, there are different ways of presenting the divine. So it's not going to be, I can't share now, it'll be too long, but I liked what I heard on the teachings of the Brahma Kumaris. I liked the way the divine was defined as a soul, as a being of light, eternal light, not an old man with a beard, of course, and not a judgmental God, not a punishing God, and not a God that takes lives and creates snakes or whatever, but totally different. To me, the divine is a being of light. It's a beautiful source of all qualities: love, peace, bliss, truth. And that divine, I connect because the origin of me as a soul is of the same nature, in the same way that my father is French too, by the way, so I'm French. So I, as a soul, also come from that original truth, original beauty, original love, original happiness. So when I connect with the divine, I just allow that reference, if you want, or that never changing energy to reconnect with me, so I can reveal that same energy as much as I can into my life afterwards. So the connection with the divine for me is a way to nurture, a bit like watering the plants of my inner garden so they can grow and prosper. So the connection with the divine helps me to become like the divine. That's why we like it as connection, yoga. It's what it means. I'm not praying God, I'm not asking him anything, but I'm connecting in silence. So I can just feel that love. I can feel that beauty. And to me, the way I perceive my diversity is that the quest of a spiritual yogi is to discover what makes me unique. Who am I as, we always say no one can play my role because it's taken. I'm playing my role and no one can play it. And I cannot play the role of anybody else because it's taken. So who am I really? And I think the biggest question, of course, in philosophy and in life is, who am I? We say it's the first lesson and the last lesson in life. So I believe that my diversity is knowing my unicity and appreciating everyone to be a unique individual. And I don't see diversity anymore, for me, outside as identified by groups, because I want to go past that. And I don't want to connect with the person in the black body just with that element of diversity, like the kids, I try to really quickly go beyond that. And I say, actually, the real diversity is not in the color of the skin, is not in the religion, but it's just the fact that we're all unique individuals. And if I don't connect on that level, and I'm still trying to deal with respecting the identity of a group of individuals, which is important, but it's limited. And I think I'm not creating that unity that I hope to see one day in the world, where we don't see the differences. We don't feel the differences, but we see the unicity, and we can see what is so beautiful in each one. Why our eyes have become so damaged with differences on the external superficial level. I lived in Montreal in an area where those from the Jewish confession, the Hasidic Jewish, so they're very visible, they're very, very, very visible. And I was for 8 years in a neighborhood where they are very, very, very present. And I was very aware of the challenges in the community, how the non-Jewish people were sometimes reacting. There was hate posed, there was discrimination, there was conflict on the street. And I felt for myself how much I needed to move from that vision of these people being part of a group and me not being part of the group, and trying to reconciliate the two identities. It's limited. I cannot do that. And I found that by having connection with individuals, it changed my whole perception of everything. But by learning to change my eyes so that I see the unicity, not even the diversity. So by seeing the unicity and the uniqueness of everyone, I want to know more. I'm fascinated then by knowing people. And then you become a little investigative reporter. When you meet someone, you take their hat away and their decoration and their religion and their culture and their bodies away. And I find out, who am I in front of? Who is this one now? Oh, what is this one about? And oh, what is their journey? And what do they like? And, just like the kids are doing. And I find that vision of unicity will make us go even beyond diversity, where inclusion is natural because everyone is unique. So it's not like we are even diverse, we're just unique.
Wow, that kind of leads, you've kind of answered a little bit of the question that's come in now, which is how do you see connections and communities in the future, and how can we co-create it? You've touched on that. You moved from this hopelessness.
You've got very enlightened people listening today. The questions are very, they are very ahead of, in terms of some of the questions we get sometimes on the first degree of diversity and inclusion. I think that, by learning how to develop the values in others as a way to enrich my own values is the way I see the future of communities. That my way of looking at others will increase their own qualities. There's a very simple rule. I always like that example. Let's say I'm in a room with 6 people, and suddenly I realize my wallet has disappeared. And I look at someone, I say, did you see my wallet? If I have even the slightest thought behind my mind that this one may have taken my wallet, I'm creating quickly, a judgment, and I'm triggering a very bizarre connection with that person. They might feel guilt, or they might feel upset, or it's just in my head. Maybe my wallet is just fallen from my pocket and no one stole it. So when I create a vision then I create a world. We always say that I see, it's not like I see the world and it becomes me. It's like what vision I can create will create another world. And so if I don't see guilty people, there may not be guilty people in the future. I know it sounds very idealistic, but there's a process in psychology. You can work your whole life to say, I want to be good, I want to be good, I want to be good. And you become better. Or you can start by saying, I am good. I'm really good. And I know it's not true, but I'm going to use my mind and my thoughts to create that reality. And I'm just having to learn quickly to say, I am good. And then see how it is true. But it doesn't look like in the beginning. So, for example, when we are tired, I know for me that has always been something difficult to feel, oh, I'm tired. Okay, you repeat yourself the whole day, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired. Well, you're just going to feel more tired. But if you say, for example, okay, maybe I feel tired, but let's tell myself, I'm going to sleep so well tonight. Check your mood. Instead of telling you I'm tired, tell yourself, oh, I'm going to sleep so well tonight. You will feel less tired and you will sleep very good in the evening. So the future community I see is where my vision changes the world. And I'm not waiting for the world to change my vision, if it makes sense. So I have to learn to see good in people, to talk about good in people. And if I see it, it will become the reality. When a person does, sometimes in our group or at work, some people tell me sometimes, oh, this person, he's hopeless, like he will never do it right. I say, well, let's try to think differently. And when the person does a little thing right, I always find important to underline it and say, really, I really appreciate. Yesterday you did something, I really liked the way you did it. But just the fact of underlying one tiny little thing gives the person the power as if it received 10 times the force to redo the same good thing 10 times more. I don't know how to say it properly, but that's what I mean. So if I change my vision, I change the reality for the people. And if I see people good, they will be good. If I see them bad, they will be bad. So I have to change my vision. And we say, change your vision and you change your world.
Wow.
I know you want us to meditate a little bit, and but also there's another, because we're watching videos, which I like very much. I'll let you know when we can watch us. So I have a little video that could be a nice dessert for our whole conversation. So maybe we can meditate first and then watch the video before leaving, or we can watch the video now and then meditate and leave. Maybe we can do that too. Yeah, it's a very positive video. It's a very positive video that just underlines what I just mentioned now, actually. That change your vision and you will change your world. So maybe we should just watch that little video about the world is possible. And it's a very famous quote, yes, we can. You heard that, I'm sure, from the campaign of Barack Obama a long time ago in the States. But it's truth. Yes, we can. So let's watch a short video, very uplifting, very, very positive about what is possible if you want and if you see it.
Yes, I can, suddenly, yes, I can. Gee, I'm afraid to go on has turned into, yes, I can. Take a look, what do you see? 133 pounds of confidence in me. Got the feeling I can do anything, yes, I can. Something that sings in my blood is telling me, yes, I can. I was just born today, I can go all the way, yes. Yes, I can. 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 Hey, yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can!
Are you ready? I can climb Everest. Yes, I can. I can fight here all night and never rest. Yes, I can. I was just born today. I can go all the way. Yes, I can.
I've always felt musical. It was something.
Wow,
Well,
very
that
powerful,
gives you,
isn't it?
I don't know for you, you're going to go to bed
Yeah.
soon, but for me, it gives me a good kick for the day. Just, yes, I can. I'm actually going to play tennis in 2-3 hours from now. So yes, I can.
What wonders you're going to do on the tennis court. Very powerful messaging, isn't it? And I love the power of that. Those short films, they just say it all and very succinctly. And I find those messages go deeply into your psyche as well, that yes, I can. And that's pretty much what you're talking about with the future, changing my vision to bring it about, to co-create the future that we want. And when I consider where we've gone to in this conversation, you know, from hopelessness and exclusion and wanting to keep out of those fields that cause suffering, and move into enriching possibilities. I think that message of yes, I can is a really important one. Eric, thank you. I'd love to invite you to do a meditation with us, another one, and take us further into your spiritual journey and how you feel that's helped you work so successfully, actually. Well, it sounds like it's very successful in this whole area of diversity and inclusion.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Yes, happy to be with you all again and explore, you know, what we can feel through the mind and how we can change sometimes who we are by creating new thoughts. So I invite everyone just to take a little breath and relax, just move the body to feel, okay, let's go into a mode where we want to explore the secrets of the mind. And I invite you to keep your eyes open so you feel you're just in a natural space. You see this point of light. It takes us into the essence of the spirit, going beyond all the physical forms. My name, my form, my country, my religion, and diving into the universe of who am I? Who is thinking right now? Where do I come from? So listening to the mind, creating thoughts, allowing silence to be very, very present. I'm actually starting to think slowly, one thought at a time. Creating space between my thoughts. Allowing that beautiful silence to become like a mirror. Just like the magic of water on a lake. When there isn't the slightest movement, it becomes a mirror. And looking at the water, I can see the sky. So now that my mind becomes more and more quiet, I can also see the sky, the world of light. And as the sun shines in the sky, I imagine this beautiful light calling me, inviting me, pulling me. And the silence allows me to see that light. I want to be with that light. Just like being under the sun brings warmth and a feeling of well-being. I want to connect with the source. I want to connect with the essence of life. And that light is not just the light. It is rays of love, rays of happiness and joy, rays of peace. Returning to the essence where I come from. I belong to that light. And I want to feel how love is such a natural energy. I want to be filled with that love. I want to be filled with peace. Such a deep, beautiful, powerful peace. This is my natural way of being. As a soul, it feels so natural to be peaceful. And I find that being connected to that light, yes, it feels like the divine, the supreme, but it's also where I come from. It's my original self. When I remove all my limited identities, this is who I am. A pure being, the essence of life, a sparkle of diamond-like peace and love and happiness. Just like a powerful energy. And I'm allowing that energy to reveal itself. And I want to bring that energy in my mind, in my heart, in my awareness, and in my life. I want to be that love, that peace, and that happiness in my life. And I can also help others to see that light, to feel that love, that peace, and that happiness. So I can share it. I can be that light and give that light. I can see that light expressing itself in my eyes, but also in the eyes of the others. We can connect light to light. And if I nurture that deep love and pure peace in me, I will be able to share it so naturally with others. They will feel it. Light brings light. Love brings love. So we can return into our daily activities and share that light with everyone. And they always say, be the light you want to see in others, or be what you want to see in others. So I think this is why meditation is always a good start, to be that.
Eric, that was, you've really shared a lot with us this evening, and I feel we could talk a lot more, and there's much more richness in there for sharing as well. But we're ending up now, time to close, and so really our deep thanks to you for joining us on Youniverse this evening and sharing so personally and professionally on diversity and inclusion. Your insights, the way you express them, the way you share your experiences, I think it's been invaluable. And I'm sure it's had an impact of really opening ourselves up more to the nuances of diversity and inclusion, and then bringing in that vision of a new world and how to co-create it, where we have a world of connection rather than exclusion. So thank you very much, Eric. It's been superb.
Well, thanks to you. Thanks for the invitation. Thank you for the invitation. And I know with more time, there may be more questions or more comments. I feel people are thinking and sharing at the same time, and it's very exciting. So thank you to you and the team. I know there's a beautiful team behind you also pulling the strings and helping all this to be happening. And I really feel very, very privileged to have been invited to be with you all on your evening and in my morning. So the world connects, days and nights together. So they are extreme. It's a beautiful example of diversity and inclusion. You are in the night, I'm in the day, in the morning, whatever, and we join beautifully. So thank you for inviting me.
It's been a delight, Eric. Thank you so much. Our blessings and, of course, our deep love to you as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Viewers, you might like to browse our online bookshop, Eternity Inc., which has a full online range of books on self-empowerment and spirituality, always at not-for-profit prices. And you'll see some lovely tools there about how to meditate or learning how to meditate. So do check that out. And if you'd like to subscribe to Open Your Eyes to the Youniverse to receive monthly updates and snippets of news, then please email us at special.events@au.brahmakumaris.org. And finally, I'd like to tell you about our next episode of Open Your Eyes to the Youniverse. We'll be joined by Calgary-based Judy Rich and Australian-based Professor Jamie Redfern. and their topic is movement and meditation. So join us next month on Saturday, the 24th of September at 6 p.m. AEST for movement and meditation. And until we see you again in September, may you appreciate your own diversity and that of others. And may you enjoy the richness of being inclusive in all that you do. Thank you. Om Shanti.